I'll be honest, guys. In American English pronunciation, there is one area that over and over again I see with students is causing issues that's not allowing them to sound like native speakers that they're trying to. And so today I'm going to try to show for you what this area is in ways that you can attack it so that way you can actually sound like native speakers that you're shadowing, you're practicing with, or that, you just want to sound more like. Good morning, guys. Good evening. Good afternoon. Welcome to your daily American English pronunciation show, which is Wake Up American. We are here Monday through Friday, typically between the hours 7 to 8 a.m. to make sure that you can get in your 5 to 10 minutes of practice for today, because that's what it takes. If you are serious about pronunciation, it takes showing up for yourself in a consistent way. So we try to be consistent for you. When I say we, I mean me. Hello, guys. My name is Jeff, or Rhymes with Breath. That's one of the 4 keys to a natural sound in American English pronunciation, including placement, pitch, breath, trying to weaken your consonant sounds in order to strengthen your vowel sounds. Hello also to Emmanuel hanging with us. And if you hang with us while we're on stream or in the future, after the stream is finished, be sure to say hey in the chat or the comments. So what we're going to, again, be taking a look at is we're going to be looking at intonation patterns, specifically situation called wavering intonation. And to really understand what this means is that you need to really firstly be able to hear the difference between doing like a different variety of intonation sounds. Hello to Sobeda, good to see you again, miss. So for instance, a falling intonation sounds like this, moving from a high pitch to low pitch, this. Or a rising intonation is like this, so going from a low pitch to a high pitch, this. There are such things as flat intonation, just doing like this, okay, but not very frequent in American English compared to rising and falling. And then there's also wavering intonation, which your language may or may not have. So for instance, we can have a rise fall like this, or you could have a fall rise like this. Okay, so those are some examples of wavers. And those wavers can go on more than once. You could do like this, or this. Okay, so there's a lot of movement that can happen with these. And especially when it comes to these wavering intonation patterns, what I see over and over again is that students are failing to replicate them in their speech. And so they're not able to sound like native speakers who are using them, which, if you're doing shadowing, if you're trying to copy someone and you're not able to do this, you're going to have a hard time trying to match their sound, and you're not going to be sure why, when the reality is that, hey, maybe we're just not doing the intonation pattern that they're doing. So I want to show for you a couple of quick examples of some of these different intonations. So that way you can kind of start not like saying these things perfectly, but you can start at least noticing like, oh wow, they used one of those waver patterns there, or, oh, they want a fall rise there, or things like that. Okay, because this is especially true as we exit thought groups at the ends of our sentences, or when we conclude a group of words. That's where we're going to especially find these waivers. So in our group coaching program, one of the things that we do every month is we introduce a paragraph, and we spend time working on it at the beginning of the month, and then at the end of the month we return to it, so that way students kind of practice on their own using the resources that we showed them. So you can kind of compare how you are at the start of the month versus how you are at the end of the month. So we're going to be taking a look at that paragraph. I'm going to put on my headphones. Let's listen to this example and see what they're doing intonation-wise at the ends of thought groups.
Had a really rough day at work. It's 9 o'clock at night. We're in the middle of like the intermission at a Broadway show. Not the right time.
We're at the club.
We're at the club. Can't hear you. Sensory nightmare. Had a really rough day at work. It's 9 o'clock at night. We're in the middle of like the intermission at a Broadway show. Not the right time.
We're at the club.
We're at the club. Can't hear you. Sensory nightmare.
Okay, so one of the things, firstly, that you may have noticed towards the end of that section of dialogue is we have a lot of repetitions of a wavering intonation pattern. Okay, club, 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 club. You hear that rise fall. And it gets repeated, like, we're at the club, can't hear you, rise, ooh, fall. Nightmare, okay, nightmare, Like, we're at the club, can't hear you, sensory nightmare. So like, we're getting a lot of those sorts of wavering patterns there. But if you just were to read that with falling intonation, for example, if you just say, we're at the club, can't hear you, sensory nightmare. Very different feel, not the same sound. Hopefully you can notice that. Let's play that section of audio again so you can compare.
Had a really rough day at work. It's 9 o'clock at night. We're in the middle of like the intermission at a Broadway show. Not the right time.
We're at the club.
We're at the club. Can't hear you. Sensory nightmare. Had a really rough day at work. It's 9 o'clock at night. We're in the middle of like the intermission at a Broadway show. Not the right time.
We're at the club.
We're at the club. Can't hear you. Sensory nightmare.
At the club, can't hear you, sensory nightmare. And in fact, there's that pattern of wavering intonation you actually even get earlier. So we hear it on show, the intermission at a Broadway show, not the right time, we're at the club, can't hear you, sensory nightmare. So all of these sections of thought groups are ending with this fall, rise, fall. I mean, rise, fall, rise, fall, rise, fall. Club, you, show, like things like that. So again, it has a very different feel if you're not doing that sort of waver. There's also a little bit of wavering going on in the first part of this dialogue as well. Let's try to see what are some things that are happening in the earlier part.
Had a really rough day at work. It's 9 o'clock at night. We're in the middle.
Do you hear how she just said night? It's 9 o'clock at night.
Had a really rough day at work. It's 9 o'clock at night. We're in the middle.
Night. Okay. So watch out for that part. Okay, we did have a quick question here. Can you tell me about the word Broadway? Yeah, so Broadway. So it's an ah sound like in law or saw, and then a sound, a, way, Broadway, and Broadway being a street in New York where there's lots of musical performances, theatrical performances, and things like that. Okay, so that's what they're referencing there with Broadway. So just play it one more time to see if there's other things intonation-wise that I want you to just kind of be mindful of, look out for if you're watching this again on the replay. Like, I definitely encourage you to watch this multiple times so you can practice this stuff. But let's see any other places where there's some noticeable wavering.
Had a really rough day at work. It's 9 o'clock at night. We're in the middle of like the intermission at a Broadway show. Not the right time.
Intermission at a Broadway show.
Had a really rough day at work. It's 9 o'clock at night. We're in the middle of like the intermission at a Broadway show.
Yep. I think those are kind of the big moments that I'm seeing in this audio for wavering intonation. But this is the bigger challenge. Here are just some examples. But the bigger challenge I have for you is the next time that you're listening to someone talk, here I just did talk, try to see what their intonation patterns are. Okay, because if we can apply this, especially to the ends of thought groups, it can help us achieve a much more natural sound much faster. Okay. If you have other questions about intonation, wavering intonation, we have other videos on the channel as well that cover this topic. But we'll be back tomorrow morning with more Wake Up American. Hey, thanks for hanging out with me today. There's a million pronunciation resources out there, so the fact that you are right there and watching me is greatly appreciated. I will see you guys later. I hope you guys have a good day, have a good night, and a good afternoon. Take care.